Top 3 Necromancer builds for any challenge in the game, including the Abattoir of Zir. And yes, this time I do also have a bone build for you. First one is the Gigadot Necromancer. This one is the most careless couch server to play because you're literally undying. Talking to your 100 dungeons, walk through it. No damage will be taken. You have 18,000 life, 18,000 barrier, and at least 13,000 armor popping, with a chance to pull this up to 15 or 16,000 to be ready for the Abattoir of Zir. While you're zooming carelessly through the dungeons, bosses, whatsoever, and you can't die, your damage ramps up mentally. Shadow damage over time, procs X-Fel's Corroded Signet, and suddenly we're seeing 20, 30, 40, 50 million damage hits over and over again. And not only these crazy procs, your actual damage over time also just takes for 2, 5 million, sometimes 6, 7, and everything in your vicinity just vanishes. This build can be played without any unique but one, and that would be the Lidless Wall. Yes, you'll need that to produce these bone storms, then dash through your enemies and make even more bone storms that gradually everything that is around just also completely refills your barrier as you're just zooming through. And yes, if you're fighting against bosses, you can even make these multiple bone storms on the bosses, especially with corpse tendrils going out and hitting multiple targets. They'll make just bone storms on everywhere in the map, which is especially great when you're in the overworld content, when you're zooming through a Helltide and you just do an event and suddenly you stand in the middle of the event, you activate your bone storm, the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls will always trigger every single corpse, and then you just make bone storms everywhere and everything dies while you're standing AFK in the middle or just throwing blights left, right, and center in a corpse explosion every now and then, just tearing everything apart. On top of the Lidless Wall, you will need X-Fel's Corroded Signet and the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls to make this the perfect coming together. Because then the ring triggers your corpse explosion, triggers your damage over time, and you with the blight together trigger the X-Fel's Corroded Signet for overloading shadow damage. That being said, without these items, it does work. It's obviously a wee bit weaker, but you're still doing millions and millions of shadow damage over time, just without the 20, 30, 40 million explosions of X-Fel's. Now the next one is finally a bone necro, and you've been waiting for it, and this one is not a squishy bone necro. We're using Lidless Wall here as well. This necromancer is created by Mr. Scum. He's an incredible source of information for bone necros. And what we're doing here is we're going to use the Lidless Wall together with a bone spear to essentially do the same as we do with the shadow necro, only that instead of focusing on the X-Fel's Corroded Signet, this time we're just beefing up the bone spear as much as we can, and it goes out for the amazing critical strike damages. And you're throwing that left, right, and center as you're dashing through the dungeon, creating the bone storms for the aspect of shielding storm. And if anything tries to stop you, any elite, anything with suppressor, if you have to kill a single target, well, you have that amazing single target damage called bone spear. And therefore, when you're facing bosses also, your clearing speed is absolutely incredible. Key pieces for this build would be, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, the Lidless Wall, then T-Bolt's Will. And here's a little trick. You want to keep your Metamorphosis hero power on level 1. Because if that vampiric power is on level 1, then you can gain resource every 2 seconds instead of every 4 seconds. Because you only are unstoppable for 2 seconds. Last but not least, you want the Deathless Visage for the bonus explosions that also can crit. Now, before you ask, could you also play the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls, or what about Grandfather? Not in this build, Grandfather, because we're obviously going with the Lidless Wall. You could put the Lidless Wall away and Grandfather in during a boss fight, but for the rings, we're actually having to run Edgemaster for the maximum damage on resource, and then also the aspect of the Exposed Flesh, where we have a chance to actually restore essence on lucky hit. Now you could say, I will lower my damage ceiling. I'll remove the Edgemaster's aspect. That is only 20% multiplicative damage less. That's technically okay, and you could put in the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls, and as you're zooming through the dungeon, you will then actually get even more corpse explosions, even more corpse tendrils, and these corpse explosions and more corpse tendrils have a chance to trigger even more aspect of the Exposed Flesh, especially they happen while you're bone spearing. So that is kind of choose a little bit your poison. Do you want just the save more damage, or do you want then the bonus damage for consuming corpses and all that happening while you're actually bone spearing? And this build has the advantage over the shadow build of super flashy high damage right click hits. With the shadow build, you have to wait for your X-Fel's Corroded to prong. With this, you're going right click and then you boom, 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 boom. You're hoping for it to go off. Choose your poison here. Lastly, we get a blood build for you. And this one is incredible because we're not only using the Banished Lord's Talisman for gazillions of overpowered Bloodlands crates. No, we're also still having the Lidless Wall. Yes, I'm sorry, it's 3 Lidless Wall builds that will give us a continuous barrier with a shielding storm. And we're going to have 13,000 armor because of our total armor percentage rolls on helmet and pants. But this build is different because finally we can use the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls together with the aspect of the Embalmer to continuously create blood orbs everywhere. These blood orbs will help you to stay fortified. They will heal you and overheal you. And they'll also, with the Gore Quilt aspect, actually make even more blood lances. Oh, and give you essence back. Everything, right? Now, you still might run out of essence on a boss fight because you're not getting the amount of corpses you're looking for. But for this, we have a little sneaky solution, and that is called the Blood Artisan's Cuirass. Why is that so good? Well, you just heard that we're making blood orbs, and then we make more blood orbs, and then we make a little bit more blood orbs. So there is going to be blood orbs everywhere, and they will be consumed. And as we consume 6 of them, or 5 if you're lucky with your rolls, you're going to make a Bone Spirit. The interesting part about that Bone Spirit is it just scales with your health, so there will be damage happening. It can crit, it can overpower as well. But the most important part is that this Bone Spirit, when it actually hits, will also generate 30 essence over the next 4 seconds if you put the points into it. And that is another source of just free essence on top of all the essence we're making. And if you have to consume 6 blood orbs to make 1 Bone Spirit, 6 blood orbs with 15 essence per blood orb is already a huge amount, plus another 30 essence, a net total of 120 essence just gained for doing what you do anyways. And while you're doing all of this for damage, your Lidless Wall together with Shielding Storm, it's having your 21,000 life, 20,000, 21,000 life with a 21,000 barrier on top, have you completely unkillable and protected. Beautiful. The best part, if you want to beef this build up for boss fights even more, you could, alternative to the Lidless Wall, carry a focus with you that has the triple blood wave aspect. And then whenever you're fighting bosses, you take the offhand and reskill quickly into blood wave to have an even bigger blood wave production and then completely overwhelm anyone in your way. And that's 9 bonus blood orbs with a wave on a boss, where 6 give you already 1 Bone Spirit whilst you're making bonus. So you get a 2-3 Bone Spirits versus the boss. That's another 90 essence. That's another 5, 6, 7 blood lances. Perfection galore. All 3 builds with videos and build planners be found in the description below. Also tell me in the comments, which one are you choosing? Which one did get the most attention from you? If you want to know more about the Abattoir of Zir or what glyphs would be perfect, 2 videos for you.